Welcome to Godly Woman with a Purpose, the podcast where I dish to you the real, raw truth as I and as we evolve, because staying the same is not an option, honey. I'm your girl, SantaLí Nicole. Final episode of this 3-part series. I'm going to be talking about the journey of faith. If I'm being completely transparent with you, keeping faith in this world today is not easy. It's not. I talked about in my first episode how I am going through a turning point in my life, and these 3 components that I've covered, or attributes, whatever you want to call them, have been what God has been working on in me. So loving others, loving myself, forgiving others, forgiving myself. Now having faith it's been the real rawness of this whole journey. The seasons that I have gone through have not only been tough at some points, but have also been very impactful to me as an individual and the role that I play in this world. With the whole thing of it not being easy, it's been a back and forth of he loves me not kind of thing inside of my head. Faith is really getting outside of your head and stepping outside of yourself. I believed for so long that if it wasn't in front of me, or if I couldn't see it with my eyes, then it wasn't worth believing in, or it wasn't worth trusting in. Along the journey, you start to learn many things. When you start to learn many things, you start to know better. So it goes on to being, well, if you know better, then you have to do better. When you know something and you know what it is and what it isn't, and you still choose to do what it isn't. Kind of like a kid, when your parent tells you no and you still go back and do that thing that they told you no to, and then you get upset because of the consequences that are done to you, knowing that that was a no from the beginning. It's kind of how it's been for me with that back and forth. Anything that may occur in our lives in the world are what we can compare to the waves mentioned in the Bible. Before I gave my life to Christ, before I started seeking God on a regular basis and really just wanting, to know who He is and who I am in Him, I lived a life where I was devoted to living the life that I wanted to live. And I did everything that I wanted, not what He wanted. I did everything that I felt was right, not what He knew was right. So a lot of the times, basing a lot of my decisions off of that knowing, I was fluctuating in emotions, I was fluctuating in the happenings, sort of like when you're in an ocean and waves are really big, the tide is high and the waves are just crushing and crashing. You get caught in one of those waves, it can toss you. And, once you get up, you try to find your footing, can't really find it, and once you do find your footing, another wave comes and just crashes and crushes you. Well, that's what life was like for me. Every single time something happened in my life, I wasn't anchored to anything. I was constantly swaying with every wave, with every happening in the world. In that experience of being tossed with every wave, in that experience of not having a stable, firm foundation on who I was, not basing it off of other people's opinions or what I looked at when I seen myself in the mirror. Really just having a firm foundation. This is who I am, regardless of if this is happening to me or if this is happening to me. I developed weariness. I developed hopelessness. I developed the feeling that I was unworthy. I developed the feeling that just drained overall. I was drained of everything. I didn't have no motivation to find myself a career, didn't have no motivation to find myself, for myself. I didn't have any motivation to be anything or do anything. With that happening and with those emotions that developed in that experience of life that I was going through, a lot of self-denial developed. A lot of self-denial started to show itself in me, especially in the beginning when I first started getting into reading the Bible again. It's full of God's promises to us. It's full of things that He promises to fulfill or that He has already done for us. We just have to claim it and believe it in our hearts, right? A lot of that I did not believe because I didn't see myself worthy of it. So I would deny it for myself based off just the mere thought that I could never be that. because of the unworthiness that I developed from every time in life when I thought I had something or I achieved something, and then another thing would happen and come and ruin that. I believe that was just because I wasn't worthy of it. Long behold, it was just because that's not what God had for me. In the beginning, I struggled with that, with the self-denial that I was not worthy of being loved, or that I was not worthy of being the chosen woman that God had me, created me to be, because of my point of view of myself and because of all that I had gone through. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see this worthy woman. I didn't see a Proverbs 31 woman. I didn't see a child of God. I saw a menace. I saw someone who was so lost, I didn't know left from right most of the time. I saw a girl so helpless that she would do anything just to be what she thought was happy. This is something I don't really talk about a lot either. I've experienced 2 very scary car accidents in my life that I can remember. I remember the first one that I experienced was the most traumatic car accident of the 2. This car accident occurred not too long after I had given God my yes. As I said before, all hell broke loose, and this was in that time frame of hell breaking loose. My car had went up a bank, hit a tree, and rolled a couple of times into a ditch. So that really shook me. That whole experience shook me. I tried to play it off like I was okay, like it was nothing. I mean, I walked away from that car accident with no scratches, no bruises, no internal injuries as far as the doctors could tell me, like no concussion, nothing, no whiplash, nothing. I could remember in that time when the car accident occurred that after it happened, my adrenaline was rushing. I was scared. I was panicking. But a couple days after all that adrenaline wore off, the one thing I could remember that I was really focused on was the car. Not that I had just walked away from a very deadly car accident. Not that I had survived it. None of that was on my mind. The only thing on my mind was the car. The only thing on my mind was how totaled it was and how much money I was going to have to pay towards it, what my spouse was going to think, and how we were going to get to work. All of these things were on my mind, not my life, not me. Not 1 minute was my life on my mind. Now, years later, being able to think about it, and God revealed to me, He revealed it to me a couple months after. First, He asked me, do you remember the car accident? Of course I remember the car accident. When He asked me that and I went back to see if I remembered it, the way that I remembered it was differently than when I had experienced it. When I experienced it, it felt like it was just moving so fast. It felt like everything was just duh, 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 duh. But when He asked me, do you remember the car accident? And I went back to that memory, I remembered it in a totally different way. I remembered it with me putting my arms to my face. I remembered me putting my arms to my face to cover me. And when He showed me that memory, it wasn't me covering me. It was Him covering me. And then He brought to my mind, He said, remember what you were thinking about after the car accident? And I was like, yeah, of course, I was worried about the car. And He's like, now why were you worried about the car and not your life? And I had remembered how I, brushed it off like it was nothing. How I just brushed it off like, okay, I'm not injured, so there's nothing to worry about. Like, my life is intact. Like, I wasn't even worried about that because it was just a natural thing. And He was like, didn't your uncle pass away from a car accident just as deadly as that one? And he didn't survive. When He brought that memory back to my mind, I felt so horrible for that fact that I took my life for granted, that I was just so entitled to life. I thanked God for life after that. I did not take life for granted after that. I did not take life in the same manner as I had before. Not everyone could survive the car accident I survived. Or not everyone could walk away with no bruises externally or internally like I did. So when I realized that, and then I put it together with the fact that He was the one covering me when I put my hands or when I put my arms over my face, I cried for Him to forgive me because I never wanted to take life for granted as much as I had in those times. I thank him now. I thank you, Lord, because without him covering me, without his grace, I wouldn't have survived and been able to recognize that God is that good, that God is that mighty, God is that forgiving, and he's that faithful, that even in my time of arrogance, even in my time of ignorance, that he still was there willing to teach me, to guide me, and to correct me. My posture of my heart was definitely changed to where I appreciated the small things way more. Like, I already had appreciated the small things. I'm a person that it's all about the small things. The small things to me show your morals. They show your heart. They show the posture in which you believe life to be. Everything has a season. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason. So after that car accident, some months later, another car accident I was involved in occurred, and that one was like the cherry on top for me. I feel like I sound like I needed those car accidents to happen. No, I didn't need those car accidents to happen for me to realize how valuable life is and how gracious God is, but they definitely pushed me to realize that. I can say that. God could have brought me through anything else, but those were the circumstances, those were the experiences that I had gone through that made me realize how grateful it is to be alive, how valuable life is, how valuable my life is. And to see it through his eyes, he revealed that obviously, I have a purpose. I have a purpose, and what I was doing in that time in my life and who I was being was not fulfilling that purpose. In his way, he was sort of bringing me out of that. He was sort of bringing me to recognize that I needed to get out of it on my own, not without his help, but so with that free will, he's hoping that we will choose him. So that's what he was getting me to realize, is that I need to choose him to get out of this. Not my will, because it's not according to that. It's according to his at the end of the day. With that second car accident happening, it was like, okay, you got my attention. You got my attention, God. You got my attention. I'm going to do it your way, not my way. So I have a purpose. Having a purpose is just like an umbrella. There's so many parts to an umbrella that make it an umbrella, as does a purpose. There are so many parts that we have to play in so many seasons of our lives to fulfill this purpose that he has over our lives. The Holy Spirit hovered over the void that was heaven and earth until God spoke a word. It's just that word is hovering over my life at this point. God was working on it in me. God was revealing it to me. Finally, I found some footing. Finally, I could be different without feeling bad about it. Another worldly happening occurred in my life just when I found my footing. My cousin passed away due to gun violence. This was very hard for me. This was at a very tender moment in my life. I was just learning how to be vulnerable. I was just learning how to accept myself. I was learning how to love in a new way. Like, God was starting to soften my heart. So to have this death occur, this very impactful death, because the type of person that he was one that was of strength. He was one that was of valor, and he wasn't perfect. And I don't want to paint him to be this perfect person, because no one is perfect. But in my eyes, he was. In my eyes, he could do no wrong. He just was the one that stood strong with me, stood and had my back. As many people were revealing themselves to not be trustworthy in my life, he was the one that was constant in my life. Although he was in prison for majority of my life, at this time, he had gotten out of prison. He was free and finally living his life. And I was sort of angry because I wasn't able to be with him. I wasn't able to see him home. Like, I wasn't able to spend time with him. All I had were the memories of talking to him over the phone. Those memories were all I had of him. And the death happened, and I got the phone call I was alone in my bed sleeping, and to hear those words come out of my cousin's mouth shook my world. Shook my world. All that I had gone through, all that I had worked up to be, all that I had worked to get to, it got shook. It got shook and destroyed it. It felt like everything was nothing. Nothing was worth it. Everything that I had worked to get to was not worth it. Who I was, I was like, what am I even doing it for? That question was ringing through my ears as I caught a plane home, as I went to his funeral, as I seen him laying in the casket, as I seen them take him out. That question was ringing. It's like, what am I doing this for? I wasn't doing it for me. I didn't care about myself as much as I should have. So what was I really doing it for? Who was I doing it for? After the funeral, after all of the condolences and the stories and the time spent with my family, when I came back to myself, I stood with that question a lot. I questioned God. I questioned him on why? Why me? Why did I have to be the one to do this? Why did I have to be the one to go through all of this? Why couldn't I just get it? Why couldn't I just, whatever it was, why can't I just understand what I needed to understand? Why did I have to continuously F everything up? Why? Proverbs 16:5-6 tells us, Lord, you are my portion and my cup of blessing. You hold my future. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. To know that was to know and believe that anything that I had moving forward in my life, anything that I seen for my life in the future or that he had put on my heart wasn't just for me. He was holding my future. He was holding anything connected to me in my future. My family, my kids, my career, my job, all of the things that needed to happen in order for me to have that future, he was going to take care of it. He was going to stretch it, prune it, dry it out so that when harvest came, for me to reap what he was been sowing in me, what I have been sowing back into him, it was going to be fruitful and multiply as he had purposed it to do. A lot of people around me thought I was doing nothing. A lot of people around me thought I was just laying on my behind and, doing nothing for myself, being lazy, whatever they would say behind my back, which wasn't behind my back because he would tell me, these people are talking about you, yes, but it doesn't matter what they're saying because you're about to prove them wrong. I'm about to prove them wrong. With all that happening, reaching the dry season, I felt like I was doing something wrong. I feel like I have been doing something wrong, to be honest, to be completely honest, or I'm not doing enough. It's not even that I'm not doing enough. It's not even that I'm not being enough. He revealed it to me that I've never actually rested. I've always been in survival mode, which is true. When you are trying to hustle and bustle and get money to do and to pay this, you don't really truly rest. You're always worried about what's happening in the present moment. You're never able to enjoy it. You're always thinking about what you're going to do next. So you're never really present, developing that sense of rest, complete rest. And this is where he would tell me to be still, be still, be still. And with all that was going on around me, I was like, how can I be still? I got my mom yapping in my ear. I got the world yapping at my ear. How do I be still? That was something I had to really be disciplined and work on in myself. And I still have my moments. I still, have my weak moments, but those weak moments are becoming less and less every time, which I thank God, because I remember when I felt like I couldn't get out of them. I remember I felt like it was an endless cycle of worry, and there was no out. There was no way to breathe. That's what it just felt like those waves were still tossing me and I couldn't catch my breath and I was drowning. In order for me to completely rest and be still and still be courageous, I had to learn to release control. It's a sense of control. Like, we think we have to do everything, we have to be in everything, we have to take control of everything, when that's humanly impossible to do. You can't be everything, you can't do everything, you can't control everything. What you can control is your attitude, what you believe, what you eat, what you drink, what you feed your mind, your body, and your soul. Those types of things. Anything that has to do with you and comes from within you, those are the things that you can control. Anything with people, the world, what happens in the world, the weather, traffic, those types of things you can't control. That's one thing we cannot do as people. We cannot change people. I had to learn that having faith was not about what I could do, but what God could do, what God was already doing for my life, and what He was planning on doing once I moved out of the way. Me moving out of the way also entailed that I needed to remove myself from inside my head. I'm an overthinker. If you're an overthinker, what's up? It's sort of like I go down this rabbit hole and it's very hard for me to come out of that rabbit hole. At one point I had to just completely remove myself from the perspective of I needed to get this done, or I needed to do this, I needed to do this. I really was just basing everything off of God will do it, God will do it. Because that's the only way that I could genuinely have faith in God, was removing myself completely from the equation. Now, of course I did the things that I knew I could do. There are the things that you can control and there are the things that you can't control. So I took care of the things that I could control and I gave the rest to God, while completely removing myself from the equation. Because if I would try to think of how I could do it, I would think of it in a way where only I needed to do it. I didn't need God to do it. There's no way that I'm moving forward with my life and out of what I'm going through right now without God. Anything I ever do from this moment on is because of Him and is for Him, is by Him. By removing myself from the equation, I really was just allowing Him to be Him. I was allowing Him to work at His time, do it according to His will, allowing myself to witness His strength, to witness His might, to witness His righteousness, to witness who He really is in this present moment in my life. Proverbs 13:2 says, "How long will I store up anxious concerns within me, agony in my mind every day? How long will my enemy dominate me?" With this verse, removing myself from the equation and was really moving myself out of my mind, like moving out of my mind and into my heart. So not over analyzing things, not overthinking anything, really moving with my heart, and not just off my heart, because the heart can be deceitful too, but not weighing it completely in my mind without my heart. Learning how to balance the two, which led me to a season of comparison that was really hard for me to get out of, and has really been hard for me to stay out of, especially now that I am continuing to post more content. The spirit of comparison will really have me stuck in my mind. So removing myself from completely deciding with just my mind and not my heart, and balancing the two, has really been the real struggle with this faith journey. It's not comparing my life to others or what God is doing in their lives versus what He's doing in my life. What He has for them is for them and the purpose that He has for them. But what He has for me is truly just for me. And some will understand it and some won't understand it. But it's okay, because not everybody is supposed to get me. Not everybody is meant for me. Not everybody is meant for you. Everybody can see you, but not everybody is meant to know you. Another thing that I had to learn not to do was compare people to God, or compare God to people. Comparing God to people is like comparing gold to a plastic bottle. Once I started recognizing that I was comparing gold to a plastic bottle. It took me out of the whole comparison mentality and into the thankful mentality, into the grateful mentality, into the, oh, we're just people. It's as simple as we're just people. Faith to me is a firm foundation. It's a firm foundation in what God has for me. It's never easy, but it's totally worth it. Dr. J. Oswald Sanders says, faith enables the living soul to treat the future as present and the invisible as seen. Faith is believing and knowing that God went before me. He spoke a word, and that word that he spoke will come to pass. Not maybe or should or might. No, it will. As he did in Genesis, he said it, it was so, and it was good. So whether I go the wrong way, whether I participate in the wrong things, he's going to use those things to still bring his purpose to a fulfillment. Will I make it harder for myself by choosing those bad things, knowing that they're not good for me? Yeah, I will. And will it break his heart? Yes. And will I be counted for it? Yes, for sure. But he's still going to use it. He's still going to use me. Now, what he has for me, if I wasn't to say yes to it, if I wasn't to be in agreement with it, if I wasn't to be obedient to it, he totally would find another person to fulfill it through. He don't show favorites. He's no respecter of a person. So if I wasn't willing to say yes, if I wasn't willing to be obedient, he would choose somebody else to do it. But he wants to do it through me because of the way that he's created me to. It will flow and it will impact so many more people. By faith, I understand that the worlds were created, and anything and everything that I may go through was created by the word of God. Nothing in the world, no man, no thing has the power or the strength to destroy or stop what he has for me. It's going to be fulfilled regardless. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. As I've said many, many times, substance of things not seen. I'm not seeing what God is seeing at times, but that isn't stopping me from continuing to take a step every day towards it. Even if I may not know the direction, he is guiding me with his right hand. He is a lamp unto my feet. I have so many promises that he is going to lead me to the finish line in good health, in good abundance. That's why he tells us that when you give your life to me, that when you continue to spread the gospel and live for him, that he's going to provide unto you what you need, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, water. He's going to provide that unto you. So with those promises, I know that regardless of what may happen in the world, but what's in me, who is in me, is greater than he that is in the world. What I may think I want and what I desire the most, it doesn't even get to what he knows I need and what he knows what will make me happy, because I've never experienced it. I've never had it in my life. So how can I know what I really truly want if I've never really had it? Right? And he knows. So I'm trusting and believing that because he sees the heart, unlike us as humans, we see the exterior surface. He sees the heart. So he knows what's deep in my heart. He knows what I really want and what I really need for my life. So I'm trusting that he's going to lead the way, and I'm trusting that he's going to get me there in one piece, in good health and in good spiritual health, and he's not going to lead me the wrong way. When we go the wrong way, it's really the enemy. When we're being tempted with things that we like, that's the enemy, because he pulls what's inside of you that he knows you want or what you desire to tempt you with it. I'm not willing to be tempted anymore. I'm not willing to be distracted anymore. I'm not willing to live for the world or live to be conformed to the ideas of the world, but transformed by the renewing of my mind. I'm living off of who God is to get me to the places that he has for me, because I'm tired of living to just my standard, especially when I've lived to place myself below standards that Especially when I've lived to below my standards. Are you kidding me? Like, I've allowed myself to have low standards for my whole life. I'm done living by those standards. I'm done living with the capacity the size of a peanut for myself. There's nothing that I could do to ever get to the abundance, to the happiness and the joy that He could give me if I just do it His way. If I just do it His way, it will all happen in the most peaceful way. I will receive it all, and I will have the right mentality for it. What I'm believing God to do for me is that He's going to build me and correct my heart posture to be strong in Him. That I will not be swayed, that I will not be tempted or distracted, that anything that I believe in my heart will be because I am anchored in Him. I am anchored in faith in Him and what Jesus did for me on that cross. If I'm able to have faith that no matter what's going on around me, God got me, or that I'm still going to get to my promise, maybe this is just a pit stop to learn something or learn how strong I am, or to learn a piece of, to gain a piece of wisdom to move forward, because there's something in my future that He sees that this could benefit me for. That's what I'm believing, and this is the mentality that I'm starting to grasp now that I'm in this journey of faith, and I'm recognizing that this testing of my faith is to build my character and not to degrade it. It's to build on what I believe in, not by my own will and my own way, but by His. I'm also believing Him to bring me to be the first millionaire in my family. For so long, my family has lived in this mentality of hustling and getting to the bag, but there's no need to get to the bag when you are the bag and you are full of all the wealth and the riches. To break that mentality that we lack or that we need all the time, or that we are financially unstable with our money, not being able to budget, not being able to comprehend that when we get more commas in those checks, it's not about our worth as a person, but about the worth of what God has trusted us with. I want to be the first millionaire so that my mother doesn't have to worry about rent. To give her that financial freedom that she's never really had in her life. Another thing I'm believing Him to do is break those generational curses. It's good to recognize that there are generational curses, but it's also good to have the knowledge on how to create different pathways. So not only breaking those generational curses, but creating new generational traditions that will be for us now and for our future and for our kids and for our grandkids, to create generational wealth, to create knowledge of generational grace, to create generational riches and unity. The things that are not only about how many zeros are attached to it. Some of the things that I'm believing Him to do are really in the spirit, in our spirit as people, in our spirit in my family, and all of the walls and the barriers that have been built for so many years. I'm believing Him to break those and tear them down, and He's doing it through me, and I've accepted responsibility for it. I've accepted accountability in the roles that I play. It's about the lives that came before me for the lives that are about to come after me. And not just by making me a millionaire is He going to break those curses, because He's breaking those curses now. He's breaking those walls, those barriers through me without them zeros attached to Him, okay? Amen? He's breaking those spiritual bondages, those spiritual strongholds that are keeping us thinking that what we are living and how we are living now is normal. If we want to get to the place where we are billionaires, where it's normal for the family to be billionaires, where it's normal for the family to be millionaires, where it's normal for the family to own apartment complexes and houses and land and own, have our own farm and have this and have that. We have to break the mentality that has been growing inside of us due to those beliefs that came before us. In order for Him to do that, He's breaking those walls. He's breaking them from the foundation, not just from the surface, because it's not all about the surface. And that's what I mean when I say I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty. I'm getting down to the real, raw truth. And when we get down to the real, raw truth, we recognize that there are so many things below the surface that we cannot do on our own, that we really do need His help and assistance in breaking and in setting for us to be those millionaires, for us to be those billionaires, for us to be those families that own farms and lands and own apartment complexes and create communities. He really keeps bringing the verse in Matthew when he's talking to the disciples about the wineskin, trying to fit new wine in old wineskins. It doesn't work. That means the dreams, when you reach them, those apartment complexes that you're trying to build, those millions that you're trying to reach, you can't obtain them with the old mindsets and the old mentality that you had before to get you to this point. You have to surrender yourself. You have to open yourself to believing that there is more in order to gain that more. I'm praying that he's not only doing it in me, but that he's also doing it in those that are connected to me. Because like I said, I don't want to get to those billions. I don't want to get to those millions. I don't want to own apartment complexes without my family. It's about the community. It's about the people. It's about who we serve. If we're supposed to live like Jesus, that means that we are supposed to serve others. We are supposed to lower ourselves to serve the next person, whether they're homeless, whether they're poorer than us, whether they're richer than us. You submit yourself to being in a servant mentality will get you to higher places. I'm believing him to build my legacy for not only me, but for my children, because like I said, it's not about just me. It's not just about my family now, but it's for my family in the future. Life and what it throws at us is not easy. I don't want them to have to worry about what it is to have to hustle, or what it is to have to worry about the distractions and the ugliness that this world offers, with knowing that there's things that are attached to our family that will also hinder their moving forward. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world in exchange for his soul? I don't want to be one to store up treasures in the world when I know that I can't take those with me. So what I know I can't take with me and will be left here is my legacy. It will be that knowledge of wealth, not only materialistically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Wealth is not just about riches. Wealth is about emotional maturity, knowledge, wisdom. That's true wealth. And if I can pass that on to my children, if I can pass on all those things that I've learned in my life, along with how to get money, along with how to invest money, along with how to spend that money and give it away, just as much as I spend it, how to give it away, where to place it, how to build on it, how to help people. Because when you help people, you're making the world better. And we can't make the world better if we're doing the same things. And I don't want to build up barriers. I want to break down barriers. Faith will take you places. Okay? Faith will have you moving mountains you didn't even know you could move. Just by speaking it. Just by the power of life and death on your tongue. You know, all you need is the faith of the size of a mustard seed. All you need is a faith the size of a mustard seed. The mustard seed is like itsy bitty. Itsy bitsy. Like this small. This small. This small. And you could tell that mountain to move from there to there. So that way you are able to go forward to where God has for you. This 3-part series has been such a relief. Feels like I've gotten so much off my chest that I've had stored up in my mind, and to be able to release it and to be able to articulate it in a way that others are able to understand it and relate to in some way is real peace. God is good, and he'll never lead you wrong. He will always love you for who you are, but love you so much to not leave you as you are. My piece of advice to you today is a challenge. A challenge that even in the midst of I want to cry my eyes out, cry but also dance. Cry and sing a song that brings you joy. In Ecclesiastes, he tells us that everything has a season. He made everything beautiful in its time. So the season that you're going through, the season that you may be in right now, just know that it will come to an end. And you can go through it miserably, or you can go through it happy. You can look at the glass half empty, or you can look at the glass half full. It's up to you, but my challenge to you today is to look at the glass half full. Look at the situation as a learning lesson instead of a punishment. Look at the season that you're facing right now as a season of strengthening you instead of a season that's breaking you. Because yes, it is breaking you and it might be punishment for the decision you made, but focusing on that doesn't bring you to a place of peace. It only makes you feel icky and bitter and hateful towards yourself. Looking at it as it's strengthening me, or it's teaching me something that I need to learn in order to be prepared for what's coming, you have a peace, and you also gain knowledge. You've also gained wisdom, and now you know that, oh, this is not just here to break me, but it's also to refine me. Being that this is the last episode of this series, I've asked my followers to give me some sort of feedback as to what they would like to see from me on my YouTube channel. So if you don't already, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and also comment below what you would like to see from me. It would help me to create more content that you would enjoy seeing on my channel and not just, being Bible blicky to the forehead. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Godly Women with a Purpose. I'll catch you next time on my next upload.